Could I ask you to take your seats? We'll resume the adjourned meeting from yesterday. But I will just run through the procedural things around safety. So for those that haven't been here before, the toilets are out on the left. For if the alarm goes, we evacuate through the doors out and assemble at the rear of armadillos, and if it's an earthquake, drop cover and hold under a desk if you can, or somewhere safe-ish. And for those on Zoom, if you can just have your microphones off unless speaking, and the same during breaks. So with that, we'll move to the public forum, and Maxwell Clark, you're up first. Maxwell, you know the procedure. I'll give you time at 4.5 minutes. You've got 5.
Oh my gosh. Well, I bought my hat because I thought the mayor would be inviting me to Christmas party. I'm early and get started. First of all, it's not safe. Before anything else is, thank her for her contribution over the years. It's been hard going. It's not easy, some of the decisions you've had to make, and I wish you well in your retirement, or whatever you choose to do. And the same for the councillors and staff. I think the same thing applies. It's been a long, drawn-out year. Basically, what I'd like to start about is the first thing is about the $27.4 million carryover from the engineers department this year. There was comments in the paper about it being a huge embarrassment to the council. I want to put a perspective on it. This has occurred not for 1 year. It's not a one-off thing. It's occurred for the last 5 to 10 years, and each and every year, the same department has overcharged the ratepayers for jobs that are not going to be completed and not going to be done. And basically, what I would suggest is that they've been overreaching on their expenditure. Now, if you overreach on the expenditure and you don't spend the money which is normally given to a project, where does this money go? Well, it seems to have disappeared, and year on and year off, it seems to disappear. What I'm suggesting is that you could cut your rates by 3% at that rate. For every $10 million equals 1% rate increase. If you cut that back, you would have a 5.75% rate increase. So when you're considering the long-term plan today or tomorrow, I'd suggest that you look at this department, say, why is this going? And it's not a matter of saying they can't do something. Sometimes there's not able to be, there's not suppliers that are available to undertake these contracts, but it's an ongoing, constant problem that you've been overcharging the ratepayers for. I put it in a different perspective. If you had somebody at home and you contracted them to pay and build a driveway on your property, and you paid for it and they didn't turn up and didn't deliver, you would expect a refund. So why is it that the council finds it acceptable to keep the money and keep the rates high when there's no necessity for it? And as I said before, the critical thing is it's not a one-off thing. If you go and look at the end-of-year financials for the last 5 to 10 years, you say each and every year between $20 and $25 million is being put aside or put on to the next year's, and it shouldn't be. If it's not able to be done, you need basically a forensic accountant to look at it and say, look, you people, you can't deliver on this, this, and this. Take it off the rates until such times as you're in a position to afford it. The other subject I was going to bring up was the seepage that's occurring at the Lee Valley Dam. I'm told that it's leaking beyond the dam, and it's leaking through the Blue Pug, and there's a high sulphur contents outside the dam itself. This has been told to me in the last few days. I want to suggest that 6 years ago, when the dam was up before it started, I publicly said that it would cost $193 million, and it was advertised as such. And yet no consultant, no staff ever got the price right. Now, it's gone beyond that slightly now. So we're now moving into $125 or $130 million over price. Councillors, as you're aware, your new CEO is leaving, and we'd like to thank her for her commitment. And the new CEO needs to give you reliable, accurate information, I'm absolutely sure that Mayor King's going to approach me as a new CEO with the track record I've got of telling you the truth. Oh, he's not here. Oh, is it recorded for him? The other thing I'll just briefly say is I'd like to see Neil Lindsay, N-I-N-D-S-A-Y. He's a community policy advisor for the TDC. This year is the first year that he's actually sent out information after you've made your decisions on the rate increases. For the following year, he sent out to each person individually and explained why your policy or your suggestion wasn't put through or was accepted by the council. I think it's an amazing contribution to dealing with people, a very positive way to deal with them. And there's nothing worse than making a submission and not hearing any outcomes. And I should be congratulated for his journey like that.
4.5 minutes, mate.
Yeah, just one last comment about this chief ombudsman things, saying to open up all workshops and similar name meetings for the public. I see me and Tim made a strong statement. We're not going to do this and we're not going to do that. Now, the question I say to you as councillors is why would you expect the community to respond and comply with your TDC bylaws if you, as a council, are unwilling to comply with the Local Government Act when you're being given directions? That needs to change. It's not a matter of yes or no. It's a matter of how can you apply it on a reasonable basis. I'm not saying that every meeting's appropriate, but most of them are. And there's nothing wrong. If you're afraid to have a robust discussion, well, I think you're in the wrong position. It's important to hear it, and it's important for the public to hear it as well. And I think as a community, we need to sort of say, well, that needs to happen. How it happens is just a time thing. Thank you very much. I wish everyone well for Christmas. I wish you well for your future. It must have been a terrible time working, and the issues must have been quite outstanding. And I think you've done a marvellous job. And thank you very much again.
Thank you, Maxwell. Lou, same thing for you. Welcome. And at 4.5 minutes, I'll give you.
He was going to go to my Christmas party.
Well, I hope I get an invitation to the opening ceremony for the dam, but that might not happen. So I have very, very quickly read the quarterly report from Waimea Water Limited, and there's just a couple of engineering points that I'd like to draw your attention to, and that you should be questioning the powers that be at Waimea Water Limited. They've again pointed to the fact that the contention that it's been a very dry period, and that is one of the reasons why the dam isn't being filled. Now, if we have a look at that, what's up on the board there, if you look at the bottom graph first, that's the flow coming down the Wairoa River at Irvine's Bridge. And we can see from the 1st of October through to the 9th of December. And we can see there were 3 flushes that came down that river. Then if we look at the corresponding period on the top graph, which is the flow in the Lee River downstream of the dam at Meads Bridge, we can see exact synchronicity and exactly the same patterns. The 2 catchments are adjacent. The Wairoa catchment is south of the Lee catchment. And what that means is there has been no attempt to impound those flushes that came down the Lee River. There's no attempt by Waimea Water Limited to conserve those in the dam. They've just gone down the river and flown out to sea. If we look at those little squares or rectangles, shall I say, I'll rewind a little bit. The area under the graph represents the total flow in cubic meters. The little rectangles, each of those little rectangles is approximately 80,000 cubic meters of water. And it's some time since I've looked at that, but 80,000 cubic meters represents, I think, about a week's water for Richmond. Would that be right, Richard? Roughly 10,000 cubic a day, something like that. He's thinking too. Right, let's say a week. So we can see the area under those flushes that came down the river are somewhere between 3 weeks and the month water supply for Richmond in a drought that has just been wasted. For what reason? We don't know why that water was not impounded in the dam. And that is a question that you should be asking, I believe. Can we have the next slide, please? This is the progress chart from the quarterly report. The top 1, 2, 3, 4 bars are civil works, which are virtually complete. The bottom bar is the electrical and mechanical, which is lagging way, way behind the civil works. Now, the electrical is always the last to finish. I know, I've been there, I've done that, I've got the T-shirt. The graph represents the total duration of the project. If you look at the bottom, the difference between the brown bar and the blue bar is 8%. That's the amount of work that's been done on the electrical and mechanical in 3 months. Just 8% of it. However, that's measured by time or value, I have no idea. But you can see that there's well in excess of 20% still to go. So if 8% was done in 3 months, we're looking at 9 to 10 months from the date of that report, which was 1st of September, end of September, something like that, to complete the electrical and mechanical. And that is just a huge red flag to me. Why has that got so far behind? What is the reason behind that? Now, if we look at the words, which are a bit hard to read, the bottom one says electrical and mechanical. The next one up says, excuse me, I've got the wrong glasses.
We're at 4.5 minutes late.
That's all right. It says plunge pool and Johnny Cash defect treatment. Johnny Cash defect treatment. Now, why are parts of this project being given code names? We've got the Johnny Cash defect treatment. We have the Elvis Presley and the Cliff Richards defect treatment. Now, why can't they explain in plain English exactly what those defects are? Why is it called Johnny Cash? Thank you. I finished with the
Thank you, Lou. Thanks very much. Councillors, yeah, referral report, page 89, Mike. Right. Hang on, I've lost already.
Oh. Okay, go to Steve.
We're on. Right, thank you. Welcome, Mike. Welcome, Brad. When you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, councillors. Before I get into this, just want to introduce Brad Nixon. He's Operations Manager for the Joint Committee Business Unit. And so he's here just to support any questions on the regional sewerage or landfill documents that are being presented today. We'll take the referral reports as read, and we are free to take questions on each of the reports.
So, thank you. Anything further to add, Brad, at this stage? No, just happy to answer questions if need be. So, councillors, it's available for questions, moving, or discussion. I'm actually happy to move from the chair that we received the report. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Dowler. Any further questions or discussion? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Jimmy. I've just got one question. It's in the report, the attachments. It's on page 2 of that, I think it is. And it's around the finances and how the end of year finished up. So management costs are under 361,255 under budget. So if I read this right, you've actually made a saving by substituting staff for consultants, because the 298,251 has replaced the shortage. So and the decisions you made has actually made a saving of $62,000, it looks like. Is that how I read it?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. In this instance, yes, that would be read correctly. I'm not certain I would say it's a saving intentionally, purely more the fact that we're only just getting to the point of recruiting to fulfill the business unit at the moment, and we haven't really required necessarily the number of consultants we might have otherwise.
Thank you. Just worthy of noting, because usually it's the other way around. Thank you.
Any further questions? Discussion? If not, I'll put the resolution. It's on the screen. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Resolution is carried. Thank you. And we'll move on to the next item, which is referral report, Nelson Tasman Regional Landfill Business Unit Business Plan. Mike and Brad again.
So, Mr. Chair, so each of these reports, we'll just take them all as read and go straight into questions, if you're okay with that.
Any further questions, comment, discussion? Someone happy to move the resolution? Move Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Ellis. All those in favour will say aye. To the contrary, no. The resolution is carried. And now move to the referral report, Nelson Tasman Landfill Business Unit Activity Management Plan. Someone happy to move? Move Councillor Mail. Oh, there you got a question or comment?
Just a comment that we workshopped all these reports and things with the Joint Council Committee, and we did move some capital projects around to meet for the needs of the two councils in relation to the Sewerage business unit, and I'm happy to support it. We've certainly got more resilience, and if you read the article, there was a good article about reuse of wastewater at Green Acres Golf Course in the Waimea Weekly this week, which is certainly a step in the right direction, and we've got further steps to go.
Thank you.
Yes,
And moved Councillor Marling, seconded Councillor Dale. Just as the chair of the Landfill Business Unit, I'll just comment before we move off then that we've gone through quite a intense scrutiny of all these things 2 times now, I think, and re-looked at some of the items at our last meeting. So we're reasonably comfortable that we're in a good place. We are disappointed that the landfill business gate charges had to go up, but that's just a fact of life. We've got to look to make it self-sustaining and affordable for the community, but cover all their costs. So it is a challenge. I saw a hand over here, Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you. I guess so. We did have quite a discussion at the joint committee meeting with Nelson City on the plans with respect to the landfill business unit. So my question would be, can you give me an assurance that our plan going forward reflects the inquiry that was made in that joint council meeting?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, the discussions in the joint workshop were reflected in the update to the AMP. The only real change for the landfill business unit was incorporation of some additional funding in the next financial year for the business case development for gas reuse options. That didn't affect the gate fees at all. That was the only change to either of the 2 AMPs, actually.
Anything further from anyone else? If not, I'll put the resolutions All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. The contrary, no. The resolution is carried. Thank you, and I'll hand back to Mayor King.
No, Stuart, did not stop the stopwatch. Right, we'll go on to the next item. So, in relation to another referral report on the Regional Sewerage Business Unit, annual report and financial statements. So, again, Mike and Brad. Welcome. Mike, intro, and then
yes, Chair. As I said, we're going to take each of these reports as read, and we're just open to take questions as we go through each one.
Okay, so open for questions for Mike and I guess Brad specifically or particularly. Move Councillor Dowler, seconded Councillor Mailing. Any questions that arise from that? If not, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. So next item, 7.7. So again, Sewerage Business Unit, but this time the master plan. Same thing, Mike, taken as read, and nothing you'd like to add, Brad. So feel free if there's any details, additions, or areas you want to highlight. But it's open for questions, feedback, or comments. If not, can someone move the resolution?
Happy to move.
Move Councillor Mailing, seconded Councillor Kinnanon. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Again, Regional Sewerage Business Unit, business plan, same deal. So, again, so move Councillor Dowler, seconded Councillor Mailing. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Activity management plan. I'm getting a theme coming through. Move Councillor Mailing.
Yep.
Seconded. Councillor Maru. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Right, and that draws us to the conclusion of the referral reports in relation to the Regional Sewerage Business Unit and the Landfill Unit. Brad, thank you very much for your attendance and your contribution. To be honest, you always take it as a win when there are no questions and everything goes through like that. Right, so item 7.10, so grants. I guess you're leading us, reports in your name, same thing. So it's a referral report in relation to Golden Bay Reserve financial contributions. Feel free to add any areas of emphasis, highlights, or things that may have changed since the report was in the agenda, and then we'll take it from there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We'll take the report as read and just take any questions now. Thank you.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report. I'm just wondering about the request from the Pakawa community for a playground, and how far down the track that is, and is there going to be enough scope in the, or how would, have you thought about how it would be funded? Would it be reserve funded, or what do you think?
Through the chair, it would be RHC's funded, and we'd need to look at how much we need to set aside for that. A few more discussions, I think.
Anything further, Councillor Butler?
No, it's fine. I'm happy to move.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hill?
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to second. Just to say, I think that these are really important spends in our little settlements, and they make a big difference. Those of us that live rurally, we know how important the Maynham Hall is for that community, and the Pakawa Hall, and Pohara Hall's looking fantastic with its paint job and now new roof. So they give little communities quite a lift, apart from the functionality, being able to use them, and they're warm and they've got water and all those things. you know, to drive by Pohara Hall now, and it just looked pretty tired for a long time. And great, we've got a committee there working away with you. You know, they've got their eyes on the next part of that project of the upgrade, and just lovely seeing life come back into such a what's been a real one of our central sort of community assets, actually. Decades and decades of weddings and 21sts, and the hall left in dreadful condition at times, as you can imagine, after those dues. But you know, yeah, I'm just very pleased that that we've got a good program, the way we're going about assessing what's needed, and then allocating funds to them, and the work's happening. So it's not one of the sort of bigger, more obvious things that happen at council in terms of council's business, but it is an area of work that has a big impact on our small rural community. Thank you.
Thank you. So you're happy to second the...
Did.
Oh, sorry, did. Councillor Kinamont.
One question through the chair. You're going to be carrying forward $180,927 for playgrounds general account. The carry forwards, is that because of not enough people to do the work, or lack of projects to do? You know, and then with the carry forwards, have you got enough work to use that funding?
Through the chair, so essentially it is due to staff turnover and reserves and facilities in the last year. However, I feel like we're progressing quite nicely now, and some of these that have been left will be taken on board and completed.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Next up, Motueka Reserve financial contributions. Same deal, Grant, taken as read.
Great.
Open for comments or questions, or mover or seconder. Councillor Maru.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to move the report, just noting that this has been to the community board in Motueka, and actually there's been some hard choices that have been made in RSCs for Motueka this time, with a lot of deferments in terms of prioritising what the board sees as most important to Motueka. So on that basis, acknowledge that there'll be some probably comments and feedback from some projects that aren't going to be funded immediately, but happy to move it.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you. And through you, Mayor, I guess want it noted that the Dex Reserve Playground upgrade is about access for all. So it's an accessible playground, and potentially I'd like to have seen that wording added in there, but if it's just noted, that would be good. Thank you, and happy to second.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further in terms of questions. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Next up, Regional Pest Management Plan, partial review and the report on consultation. Paul and Rob. Or Steve. Okay. Yeah, well, you know, you can keep us moving down that path. It'll be really much appreciated. Paul, Steve, over to you, which in terms of introductions and again, referral reports. So, but feel, you know, if there's things you want to highlight, add or comment on before I open up for questions, please do so.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the first thing I would like to mention is this morning Nelson City Council approved its side of this joint committee partial review proposal. So I got an email a couple of minutes ago just before I came down. So it's a joint Nelson-Tasman plan. We have to move together in order to make any changes to it. So the Nelson side has been approved to go out for public consultation in late February 2024. wouldn't go out before that because there's the Christmas New Year period and we seldom get good press if we put something out during that time. The Joint Committee's met a number of times. It's done due diligence. It's turned its mind to just how pesty these things are, but also to other issues such as the council at the end of the day will have to resolve that it has consulted appropriately, that it's adequately funded, and that the cost benefit all adds up. So there's things to be balanced against what we might wish to do, what we can do. So I commend this proposal to the council for its approval. It's a step along a process. At the end of the public consultation process, which would be 1 month, which would end sort of late March 2024, the council will have the choice of agreeing with the submitters, rejecting what the submitters say, modifying its proposal. So this is a necessary step, and open for questions. Thank you.
Thanks for that introduction and overview, Paul. Councillor McKenzie, Councillor Butler, Councillor Kinnemont.
Thank you very much, through the chair. So thanks, Paul, for getting the work to this point and for those who sit on that committee. I'm just wondering, for my benefit, if you could maybe let me know how this plan is going to help address our feral cat population.
Why was I thinking we'd be finished by lunchtime? Someone brought up the C word.
The answer is twofold, Councillor McKenzie. The council is also looking at a bylaw under the Local Government Act for management of domestic and companion cats. And the options on the table are microchipping and desexing. And so far, Shape Tasman has indicated strong support for both of those options. Obviously, the council will need to then consider that feedback and decide how it goes. So in terms of the pest management plan, what is proposed in this partial review is that the areas of high value where there's already activity happening, such as Abel Tasman National Park and Nelson Lakes area around St Arnaud, that feral cats would be added to the pest species there. And in the case of the St Arnaud area, a pest agent rule would be introduced, which would actually say that any new cat brought into the area needs to be microchipped and desexed. So it would be complementary. Within Nelson City Council area, largely their reserve areas, they've declared, proposing to have feral cats as a pest in their plan. So complementary. In the absence of national legislation, it's about as far as the bits of legislation we operate under will allow us to go.
And so in those areas, say Nelson Lakes and Abel Tasman National Park, and I'm assuming maybe around the Waimea Inlet, but
that was already there.
Oh, okay. So how will people in those areas get the microchip readers?
It's probably not intended that everybody has a microchip reader. What we've done with Waimea Inlet is the council had a microchip reader that it loaned to Tasman Environmental Trust when they were doing tracking programs. And I would imagine we'd look at a similar accommodation. I gather Tasman Environmental Trust have now purchased their own. They've come down considerably in price in recent years. They were a barrier a couple of years ago in terms of cost, but there's a lot of options on the market now.
Okay, so it will be part of eventually implementing a plan to look at how we might help facilitate that process to ensure that, I mean, if in actual fact to deal with a feral cat, you need to have a microchip reader to understand if it's feral or not. That would be part of implementing the plan, I'm assuming.
That's correct, and there are a lot of other nuances, such as, you know, you can't use a microchip reader with a cat inside a metal cage. It won't pick up a signal, so you've got to then work out a way of doing it. In the Waimea Inlet case, the cat gets transferred into a bag that allows the reader to operate. So yes, absolutely. Those types of details can be worked through, and we've already got a worked example in Waimea Inlet.
So that's great progress. Thank you very much.
Right, I don't think it's the microchip reader you need to deal with the feral cat, but nevertheless. It does help determine whether it is feral cat or not. Councillor Butler.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to move the report, and I'd have to say that Paul, I keep thinking Paul's finishing and then he pops up again. So but you are really finishing, and thanks for bringing this to this stage. So it's much appreciated. And you know, the limitations of the Act, the Biosecurity Act, are really quite significant, and it really does limit what actually you can do under the Act. And we don't want a situation where everybody's domestic cat is being declared a pest. So yeah. Happy to move.
Councillor Butler, Councillor Kinnermont.
Happy to second as well. I'd also like to reiterate what Councillor Butler is saying too, that thank you, Paul, for coming back from retirement to finish off this one, to get it over the line, or hopefully over the line. And also take note of your comments when you first sat down about this is not going to be a cheap exercise. And so it's going to cost the council to get this across the line. I don't think we have any budgets or any idea of costs at the moment, but I just reiterate that if we want to de-sex snip and chip cats, it's going to be a bit of an exercise and a cost. So thank you, Paul, for all your help. And once again, I hope to see you out on the traps.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Thank you, Mayor King. For you to Paul, thank you for the work you've done this term and last term when I was the chair of the Regional Pest Management. Always appreciated your advice and knowledge, so thank you very much. All your links to people who can give us even more information. So I think it's been well covered, the issue of cats. It was well discussed at the Joint Regional Transport last Friday, ably chaired by Councillor Butler and
Regional Transport.
No, regional. Oh, did I say regional?
It's all good. One of the things about reducing cats transport and is
regional.
There is a
management
way of doing it.
My bad. But anyway, yeah. So it was a full and frank discussion around cats and going forward. But also the other thing that was quite important, particularly for the Lakes-Murchison ward, was the discussion around wilding pines and conifers. So that was quite important and a good result there as well. So happy to support the resolution.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bryant. Is there anything further? So just to reiterate, Paul, thanks very much for your contribution, and as people mentioned, coming back into the conversation for this particular process. I think you mentioned in terms of the Shape Tasman feedback, and there is a lot of support for the approach. I think the other thing that's been really good is the response to a number of the questions, queries, or comments that maybe not as supportive, but there was quite a lot of potential for misunderstanding about what being registered meant, etc. But whoever is doing the feedback and the response to questions, from what I've seen, has done a really good job of clarifying what it means, what it doesn't mean particularly. Inevitably, I think, picking up on Councillor Kinnermont's comment, when we get into the formal part of the submissions and the feedback, and there will be some passionately held views, I have no doubt. Anything to do with dog regulation, registration, elicits a similar feedback, and in my experience, cat owners and lovers have passionate views, and equally those who don't have such a fond attachment to cats have very passionate views as well. So for those who are going to be involved in the process and the hearings and recommendations, best of luck with that. So I will now put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
If I may just put Paul to table, echo the thoughts of Councillor Butler, and thank you, Paul, for the work that he's done on this. It's been a labour of love for probably more years than you want to count. And in the joint committee a week or 10 days ago, Councillor Sangster suggested that Paul might like to comment on this as part of the submissions process as a private citizen. So that would be interesting to see as well. And I guess finally,
Samson.
Sorry.
I was going to. Yeah, anyway. But the other alternative would also be interesting.
Perhaps also the mayor might like to offer us up a chocolate fish for the referral report with the longest time on the agenda this morning.
Not sure that's how it works. Right. Next up, we have got Rob Kent, so in relation to community lease and licence renewals at Lakes-Murchison, Waimea, Moutere and Richmond. Rob, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies, I was at Adrian's farewell when I got the text, and I would normally have my tie and my name badge on. So
I know I'm much more comfortable with you as well.
I think makes me nervous. So on Margot's and I have worked together on this report. Margot's about to have her first family Christmas in the US. So she's heading to the airport today, so she's not able to attend. Just as a bit of background, and it drives me nuts, and I don't want to bore you with the ins and outs of it, but there's different processes for leases of recreation reserves. There's different processes for leases of local purpose reserves. There are different processes within those depending on whether there's a management plan and whether the particular group's mentioned in a management plan. We're trying to bundle them together as much as we can in terms of groups that are on particular types of reserves and groups that don't need an endorsement from a community board. So the two reports that I've got are what I'm hoping will be relatively routine renewals. These groups have all been operating on these reserves for quite some time. I'm happy to take questions if you have any.
Thanks, Rob, for the introduction and overview. For questions, comments, or moving and seconding, Councillor McKenzie.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Through the chair, thank you very much for the report. So we have been working on a project to look at some consistency and regularisation of community property leases. So how has that work been taken into these lease renewals?
So within that community policy, community leasing policy, as you'll know, I've been working with Neil Jackson, who's subsequently gone to Wellington now. So I'm kind of not expecting that that policy will be finalised until, you know, quite late in 2024. I'm not expecting the way we operate within these community leases to change all that much. I think the documentation that we're using now is working pretty well. And with groups like this, it's relatively straightforward. We're just extending the use. Where we're seeking a bit of guidance for the policy is the groups which aren't operating particularly effectively, trying to work out what to do with you know, buildings that aren't being used and anything like that. So none of these groups fall into what I'll call the challenging areas of community groups. And all their leases have expired, so we're just trying to go through a renewal process to keep on top. You'll also probably remember that every time Nick comes to an ops committee, it says how many leases are to be renewed, and he's pretty keen on me to reduce that number.
Thank you. I'm happy to move.
Thank you. So it's moved. Councillor Shellcrest.
Yeah, just wondering whether there's any update on the scouts, with the Wakefield scouts and the Walker scouts, where we're up to with that.
So
closely following the C word is the S word.
Yeah. So these are the routine ones.
Yeah.
So obviously, so I do know that Nick would, so we wrote to the scouts about a couple of months ago and said that we were concerned about Wakefield and Rewalker, about the fact that they weren't being actively used, and asking the scouts to tell us what they intended to do. They came back and said they were working with the Play Centre Association. I guess what's a little bit frustrating is that the Play Centre Association are telling us that the scouts aren't particularly communicative. Nick has written back to the scouts encouraging them to continue with that conversation, but it is difficult. We've got to drive a delicate line between not predetermining an outcome in case the scouts aren't happy with what the Play Centre group wants. So I know Nick's written to the scouts a second time and encouraging them to work with Play Centre.
Yeah, thank you.
Just to clarify, if I may, through the chair. So you said the Play Centre Association. Do you actually mean the Play Centre Association, or are you referring to the Kindergarten Association?
Yeah.
They're two quite different organisations.
That's the kindergarten.
Thank you for pointing that out, because I know they are very different organisations.
Okay, so we're not talking about the Play Centre Association.
It is the kindergarten.
Okay, that's all.
My apologies, but as I think you know, the building that the Scouts used is owned by the Scouts. Yeah. So that's what creates an awful lot of complexity. We can't tell them what to do with their own building. We can deal with the land that's under it, and we can encourage them, but we can't force them.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, because I was thinking the same thing. Councillor Kinnermont.
Through you, the chair, I'm happy to second the report. I've got two questions. Page 143, clause 4.6, you talk about a 5-year lease agreement. Is there any right of renewals in that, like a 2+2 or something like that?
No, at the moment we're just looking at straight 5-year leases, and that is something that will be discussed within the community leasing policy, whether we include rights of renewal, whether that 5-year term is too short, about right, too long. So at the moment, it's the straight 5-year leases.
And my second question is, do you visit the sites as well to confirm that the lease area that they're utilising is true and correct? Like they haven't added things to the area since the last renewal?
So we get recommendation from the reserves and facilities teams on the lease renewal. So we trust that they're familiar with the situation. But you know, sometimes things have been added, and sometimes we're asked to include those. And I think I know the one you mean, and we have been aware of it, and it will be included in the new lease.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Robert, just in relation to the Lakes-Murchison wood, just firstly like to thank Margaret, or ask you to thank you on our behalf for all the work she's done around these two, particularly the Pony Club, which took a little while, I understand. It's Pony Club sometimes can. Just a question around the golf club. not so much about the lease, but the underlying ownership, and if there's any money to be expended on that land, who has to give the permission? Is that us or the minister? And if it's too complex, I'm happy to take it offline.
No, it's relatively simple. So, like a lot of the reserves in the district, the underlying ownership sat with the Crown. So, you know, working through, particularly in the last 20 or 30 years, reserves of local importance have passed from DOC to the council. In that particular case, at the Murchison Golf Club, at one stage we realised that we'd been leasing them land that we didn't have the right to. It was all a bit of a technicality, you know, DOC was quite happy with the situation. So we did formally get appointed to control and manage the Murchison Golf Club land. And so if things need to change, then I believe that the council has the delegation to make that decision without reference to the Minister of Conservation.
That's good to know. Thank you. I'll talk to you about it further.
Okay, thank you. So if there are no further questions, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Next up, another report in relation to different classification of reserves. Rob, anything you'd like to add on this one?
No, as I mentioned, these ones are all on local purpose reserves, which has a slightly different process. Generally, the big benefit is that there's no requirement for public notification. So it's all relatively straightforward. The only thing that I'll mention, which is mentioned in the report, is that the Fire and Emergency Organisation at St Arnaud, when FENS was set up and we had to grant a lease because we were no longer the Rural Fire Authority, the original lease was just for the building footprint. We've agreed with FENS that it probably makes more sense for them to control the car park and everything like that, because they need to be clear that when they need to have vehicles there, that it's not the council who's potentially allowed something else to happen on that land. In practical terms, I don't think it changes at all.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Again, open for comments, questions, or moving and seconding. Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Thank you for you, Mr. Mayor. Robert, just a couple of questions. Firstly, about what you've just talked about. Just at Lake Rotary, isn't there also an adjacent reserve there that some of the land is close to the fire station? Or does it all become one? Well, I thought there was a bush area there.
So it's the same type of reserve that we were mentioning. We're appointed to control and manage that by the Minister of Conservation. It's one parcel which is held as a local purpose fire station reserve.
Right.
So to me, it makes sense that FENS manages it all.
Yeah.
If you look on an aerial photo, you know, obviously you won't do that now, but there's a few trees, but it's not noticeably any different to kind of the surrounding residential land. And
in fact, given there's a screen at the back, so they're beneficial there.
Yeah, and the lease does prohibit them from cutting down any trees without our permission. So.
Excellent, thank you. And just in relation to B, people replaced, that's the National Association rather than that lease is with, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure that's right. I stand to be corrected. I don't want to lay my hand on my heart, but yeah, as a general rule with all the play centres, our lease is with the National Association, and I think the Te Whānau Tupu Ngāti o Aotearoa is the National Association.
Thank you. With that, I'm happy to move the resolution, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. So the resolution has been moved. Are there any other questions, comments? Councillor Shellcrest. So moved and seconded. I'll put the resolution. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Mike is here. So item 7.15, amendments to Council Traffic Control Devices Register and Traffic Control Bylaw. Yeah. Thanks, Rob. Mike, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to take the report as read and answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. So there are a number of locations covered by the various reports, maps, and otherwise. Councillor Murray.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer this, Mike, but on page 167, the old Wharf Road extending the yellow lines, I had a phone call from one of the water truck operators yesterday who's saying that he's heard that he may not be able to turn that loop anymore. So is there whoever controls the water truck stuff and the reserves talking to each other? Do you know? So there's these yellow lines there so that the turn bay can continue through that car park? Is that the purpose of the yellow lines?
No, the purpose of the yellow lines is similar to a bus stop design. Is I think 15 metres on approach and 9 metres on the exit, so that the water tanker can park parallel in the keep clear zones where they fill up, but they obviously need quite a distance to be able to manoeuvre in to park parallel to the curb. So the intention is they then leave and continue down the road.
Do you know if there's an intention to stop using that turning bay, and if there is, does that affect the whole operation of that water filling site?
Well, it doesn't affect the operation of the water filling site, but there is no turning bay, and the current use of the car park area is causing issues for them. This is the feedback we've received is causing issues for that car park area and for the surface. So that is the intention to put some guidance signs up to indicate to drivers that they should not be turning around in the car park.
So is there any plan that shows where they will turn around?
No, they will just need to use the road network to make their way back onto to where they're going in their journey.
Thank you. And the other part is, I think it's one step. I won't steal Councillor Walker's thunder. I'll leave one step. Thank you.
Councillor Ellis and Councillor Dowler. Oh, and Councillor Walker. Oh, a Motueka issue. Are you sure? Are you sure? Would you like to let the Motueka people have their comment on and then come back? Or
no, we'll give them a bit of a break in between. And then just say just how successful that Shane Road shared path has been, and it's a great response working with the developer to make a very problematic area so much safer. And I've had quite a bit of feedback on how well that's worked, especially as a temporary measure. So thank you very much. It's a great outcome.
Thank you. That was a nice break. Councillor Walker and then Councillor Dowler.
Okay, thank you through you, Mayor. I'm going to let Councillor Dowler vent his bit over the water truck thing, because I'm pretty sure that's where he's coming from. I will add, though, I struggle to understand how we go and consult with people like the 4 water truck companies, and then we come out with where we are today. That's all I'm going to say on that. My other question is around, and I don't know if you're the person to ask, but I'm pretty sure we signed off potentially at the last one of these meetings with regards to traffic signs on the corner of Vosper Street and Angle Street. So you may recall my conversation around that medium island being removed to navigate the e-bus around the corner. The stop sign was taken out. We've already had a gnarly accident, and we signed off here that we were going to put a stop sign up to try and reduce hazards at that intersection. I don't know if this is the time to ask, but I'd really like an update on when the stop sign's going to appear, please.
Yeah, obviously I don't know when it's going to appear, but I can follow up with our contractors, and it has been quite a while, so definitely something I'll be keen to follow up.
Councillor Dowler.
So we'll be here at 3 o'clock, as I said this morning. Right, frustration. When we went through the transport choices stuff for Motueka, this area was talked about quite a bit, and regarding the tankers and their turnaround situation at there. And the decision was made in the room with staff. You weren't there, but with Dan Roberts and Robert Grady, and it went forward that those tankers will be able to turn left into the rec centre car park and head back down because they're too big to do a U-turn on the road. And if they need to go around the block, it's a huge drive just to head back to the highway. The entrance to the rec centre was modified to accommodate those tankers to do that manoeuvre. And the other end, and it's an entrance only now, and the other end is being modified as we speak, is a two-way in and out for those tankers and that to have proper access out onto that road without hindering traffic coming in. All of a sudden, I get this, I better say it nicely, rubbish that's come forward today. So I want to know why, after all the work we went through for the transport choices and spending lots of money, getting all this modified and made nicely, it's all turned into crap for the bloody tanker drivers.
Richard. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All that this report is about is to put the no stopping signs in, and Mike Van Ent has actually commented the reason why we do that is so the tanker drivers can get in and out without having vehicles parked there. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to get in and out. This report doesn't cover what was discussed as part of transport choices. Mike is not aware of that, and that is still being implemented as per agreement.
So just
I'll take that on board.
Yeah. So just to clarify, in terms of passing this resolution, if it's passed, moved and seconded, all we're doing is adding the no stopping yellow lines between the two parking bays for the water tankers. That's the limit of the restrictions or options. In terms of any signage that discourages people turning around the car park, that's a subsequent conversation.
Correct.
Nothing that we do today prevents those tankers from utilising the work that Councillor Dowler referred to of turning in the car park.
Correct.
And clearly, there needs to be a subsequent conversation. If it's damage to the surface of the car park and it's a cost, then we either add it to the charge of the water and then make sure that we're not lobbing that cost onto reserves of funding the car park, or we just accept there's a cost of turning in the car park and that's part of providing a service of water tankers, but none of that is the subject of this particular report.
That is correct.
Okay, so just so we're clear, but we do obviously need to address the issue of turning in the car park so that everyone's clear whether that is...
Just putting it out there,
yeah, that's fine.
Further discussion.
Yeah, no, it's all good.
Just like add a small bit on that. So the formal part, the resolution that's being added to the bylaw, you're correct, it's just there's no stopping lines. But in response to the feedback, there was an indication here that we would put that guide signage up to indicate the drivers not to turn around. And I think the message is clear that there needs to be further discussion on that before we do that.
Yep.
So we will need to go back to those that provided that feedback and let them know that there's subsequent discussion happening and that sign won't be going up immediately.
Yes, I think that is probably what you would take from the conversation we just had. Yes. Councillor Dowler.
Just a clarification, that the trucks aren't actually doing U-turns in the car park, they're actually just turning in and then going down and coming out. And yeah, and my understanding was that road surface was supposed to be improved in the entranceway and exitway for that to happen. Maybe something's changed.
No, I think that is still what was agreed. This is just dealing with the no stopping signs.
Okay, so are we all clear? We're all clear what we are doing with this resolution, what we are, and that there will be a subsequent process to. Yeah, all good. Councillor Walker.
Just one more thing, we've had, I've had and the staff have had photographs of already the damage that the water trucks are creating by driving through the rec centre because the surface of that car park doesn't seem to be fit to have those heavy vehicles go through it.
Yeah, so there's clearly a subsequent conversation to have about the turning inside the car park, but it is not the issue that's in front of us today with this report. So move by Councillor Dowler. Is there a seconder?
I'm happy to second, but I do just have one question.
Yes, fine.
For a Green Street, for you, Mr. Mayor, to Mike. Very happy to see those yellow lines around the AMP entrance, but I do wonder if at time we're going to have to look at coming right back up past Oakwoods, right up to a railway reserve type area with yellow lines on both sides before we widen that road, just to discourage people from parking and to make it easier for people to get through there, particularly when there's events on.
Yeah, that's not something that's being considered at this stage. Obviously, there is a road improvement project in the future, but we could look at low-cost improvements to traffic flow in the interim. But at this stage, we're still looking to maximise parking on our roadsides. So there is a balance.
Which is a balance.
And during an event, the traffic management plan for the event can effectively temporarily
and does
cone off some or all of those car parks.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, Councillor Downer.
Yeah, just a question about the bus stop relocation in Wallace Street. If we approve that today, when do you think that may happen? Just to remark it anyway without doing anything else. The accountants there do have quite a problem with people walking in and using their toilets, thinking they're public toilets, etc. And so they would like that to be remedied if they could by shifting that bus stop. But we are in discussions with project managers regarding how it will actually end up, but the marking on the road will stay where it is, of course. But, you know, I just wondered when that may be able to be shifted.
Yeah, absolutely. We can look into that. You might be more up to date with talking to project managers direct with the timing of that. I would pretty safely assume it's not going to happen this year, so it's in the new year at least. But
it's closed down over Christmas anyway, so they'll survive with the doors locked.
Okay, thank you. So it's been moved and seconded. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thanks, Mike. Next up, Mike Drummond in relation to amendments to the delegations register. Mike.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is a routine matter. We need council approval to update the delegations register for the new titles for the new roles within the finance department. I'll take the report as read and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councillor McKenzie.
I think it's a straightforward report. Happy to move.
Moved Councillor McKenzie, seconded Councillor Mailing. Nothing further. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Waimea Water Limited's quarterly report to shareholders. Mike.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This is the routine quarterly report from Waimea Water Limited. Councillors will recall that Waimea Water recently presented an update to council. This report follows through on that. There are no new matters in this report that were not covered off within that update. And I'd note that the dam remains on budget in terms of the $198 million expected cost to complete. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mike. It's open for questions. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you. I guess, you know, we have had Mr. Solomon speak in the public forum this morning, who's perhaps raised two questions. So I guess my question would be, how might we just get a response to the 2 points that Mr. Solomon has raised?
Mike.
Through Mr. Chair, I've already just texted Mike Scott, the CEO, to ask about the Johnny Cash issue. I'm just waiting for a response to that. I will have a conversation with Joseph Thomas about the hydrology aspects of Lou Solomon's presentation this morning. We'll circulate those responses to council this side of Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are you happy to move the?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Greening.
The report refers to some residual risks. I was wondering if you could just talk me through what those residual risks are. And just to reinforce the comment that I think these reports do need to be very plain English, and we shouldn't be using Johnny Cash-like terms for project names. They do need to be plainly explained, and it's disappointing to see that appearing in these reports.
Mike.
The quarterly report from Waimea Water Limited identified 3 key residual risks. They were unable to put a monetary value against those risks, which is not surprising. The first one was the commercial risks associated with an unexpected outcome from the contractor initiated arbitration. That's been a matter that's been before this council in the past. The second matter is the continued dry weather delaying filling of the reservoir. We're seeing some evidence of that. I think earlier this week, I was advised that the reservoir was about 60% full. Well, a dry summer will have an impact on the dam's operation. And also, the third matter is one about greater embankment settlement. So, in the engineering design, I understand there is a allowance for that embankment to settle. If that embankment settles, then the mechanical systems could go out of alignment. That will require a corrective to bring them back into alignment. They were the 3 risks that were identified by the company in their quarterly report.
Thank you, Mike.
Just also wondering, and it was a question raised yesterday, but I thought I'd ask it again, given people probably interested in this particular topic, which is some time ago, we received some modelling data for the ability for the dam to do what it's designed to do. That was peer reviewed, and in that peer review process, Andrew Fenimore acknowledged that not all the data fitted the model. In fact, I think they could only fit 2 years of empirical data into the model, and that they would be continuing to do that model. So will we be, what's happening with the report back on that? Because I'm conscious that these are also other risks that we may need to invest in if it turns out the dam doesn't quite work or the modelling is incorrect.
Through Mr. Mayor, as councillors would have noted from yesterday's council meeting, the Group Manager Community Infrastructure undertook to report back to council after a conversation with staff who have the expertise in that area. I'd expect that report back to be with councils certainly by the early in the new year.
Thanks, Mike. Cheers.
Right, thank you. Are there any further questions? If not, it's been moved and seconded. No, it's been moved. Councillor McKenzie, is there a seconder for the receipt of the report? Councillor Mailing. All those in favour, please say aye. Next up, we've got the machinery resolutions report.
Move, Mr. Mayor.
Moved Deputy Mayor Bryant. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hill. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Right, so just very briefly, because I've just got to check one thing to do with the previous resolution. So someone highlight what exactly the issue is that.
There was a recommendation from the community board about the Wallace Street bus stop, and instead of doing a referral report, it was decided to include it in the previous report, that one, but there was no recommendation about the bus stop. And then I think we need a resolution. Does that make sense? We can revisit that.
It does make sense. So what is the suggested resolution of the resolution?
We need to get Mike back.
Do we? or do we just need a resolution?
If
Councillor Walker.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, can I pass a resolution that we actually accept that we are going to move said bus
So
stop?
this is the bus stop that Barry was referring to, right?
Yeah. But there's a separate resolution in the report that we have to accept the recommendation from the community board and get
Are you
the
happy to
said
move
bus
the
stop
resolution?
moved. I'm very happy to pass the resolution.
Right.
I'd also like to note it's not so much about the public using their toilets, but the fumes that are going in, and the staff member has to be relocated from her room because they're not all e-buses that stop.
Bus.
That's the point. They are not all e-buses.
I am shocked.
Thank you.
Happy days. Yeah, we'll just get the resolution worded correctly.
Right, it's got his hand up.
Yeah, the wording's on the agenda. It just needs to be transferred across into the.
Through Mr. Mayor, just to assist councillors, I've had an update from Mike Scott at Waimea Water Limited. The Johnny Cash defect treatment, it's a site name for a shear zone that bisects the plunge pool. They've noted they won't refer to it in that way in future reports.
Can we ask what the while that's the site, what actually it's about?
Yes, we can get an answer to that, Mark, but it's not going to be in the course of this meeting.
No, that's okay. I'm just conscious that I think that was the essence of the question, which was, what is it about, not where it is located, but yeah.
I could offer you a view, but it's probably better that it comes from Mike Scott. Right. So we'll hold that over until Mike gets back and we'll carry on. And the next item is the CEO's report. Janine.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll just take the report as read. I've put some farewell comments in there rather than go into them now. I will just say they were sincerely meant and welcome any questions.
Okay, thank you. Open for questions, comments, moving off seconding. Councillor Kinnemont, is that your hand I see, or are you bidding on? Oh no, you're not. Councillor Kinnemont.
I'd like to, through the mayor, I'd like to thank Janine for her report and accept that. I've got 3 questions. Page 229. 15 staff volunteered at various times at the National Primary School Kapahaka competition. That's horrendous that the staff are giving up their time to work in that. So I'd like to especially thank the staff for that. Next one is clause 5.6.
Was that tremendous or horrendous?
Tremendous.
Oh, tremendous. I was going to say, I got horrendous out of that, and I was wondering how you got to that point. But if it was tremendous, then we're good. Carry on, Councillor Kinnemont. Now we've clarified that.
It was a bit of a late night last night. Clause 5.6. The cadetship program Sorry. It says here that to gain work experience within the council in a iwi space. So does that mean that iwi have someone ready to go into that space?
Our Kaihotu is working with the iwi around the recruitment of the cadets across the 3 councils. And so they'll be involved in the recruitment. We're not necessarily placing an expectation on them that they provide, but we anticipate that they will nominate. And just to clarify, this was all funded through the Better Off funding. So we're quite fortunate to be able to actually have these cadetships in place.
Was there a third one? Oh, there was,
but no, I won't ask you today.
All good. Thank you. Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you very much. Through the chair, I'm actually happy to move the report. Obviously, it goes without saying, Janine, this is your last report to full council, and you know, I'm not sure whether you're sitting there with sadness or highly energised at the thought of what comes next, but it goes without saying that I would like to pass my thanks to you for your role as CE during the time that I've been on council, and just reflect actually on paragraph 7.3 of your report, because you know, you could almost say that in a large organisation, the key role for the chief executive is to lead the culture of the organisation, because it's through culture that actually stuff gets done. And so, you know, the improving score, you know, and the Ask Your Team is a reflection of that. So, so well done, and thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Bryant.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Yes, no question from me, but I'd just like to extend my thanks to Janine for the work she's done in the time she's been here. I really appreciate that. Right from when you started, right through until you finished, it's been great, really. So thanks very much for all your effort, and really appreciate the support. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Bryant. Councillor Hill.
Has the report been seconded?
No.
I'm happy to second the report. I think this council has benefited enormously from your intelligence, your compassion, your experience, your ability to walk into a whole new sort of sector of public service. This would not, anyway, you know, and get up to speed around that. And your values and qualities, I think, had a really big impact in terms of the shifts within council. Your ability to get buy-in from other the senior leaders and managers and staff into shifts in values and thinking and ways of going about things, I think, is can't be overstated. Someone involved in the Papakāinga project at Motueka I bumped into this morning, and then they said, "Oh, you could, your council have been pretty amazing around that," with a slight look of like, this is new ground. Things haven't been so easy in the past in lots of ways for that sector, I suppose. And it can't be overstated actually how hard you've worked. So you've worked incredibly hard, and you know, hitting a pandemic like that, whole new ground, you know, your leadership through that for the organisation, and your support of all of us was outstanding, really. So it gives me, I'm pretty sad you're leaving in terms of what we lose. You've got some, you know, your shoes don't look that big, but they are big shoes to fill. But I think I do like the idea of imagine you driving off down wherever you're going for a bit of a break, and what you know, I hope you go there'll be relief, I imagine, in some way, but you know, that you allow yourself to feel really deeply satisfied with your efforts here and the legacy that you leave that will just keep filtering through.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Janine, I remember meeting you as the Regional Commissioner of MSD, and I just want to acknowledge your leadership. And I don't think your note in 10.7 about no local government experience, I don't think it mattered. I just want to share with the council table, and I think I've shared with you, is when you announced your farewell, you met up with one of the regulatory staff in the photocopy room and not only gave you a big hug, but brought tears to her eyes the fact that you were leaving. And I just, I share that because that's the impression I get from your team. They, you know, you had their back and they've had yours. So that's a real true trait. So I wish you well and hopefully you get some time off. Just drive around. but I hope we meet again in some other form in some other place. And yeah.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Was that a deep sigh of relief, Janine, that I heard next to me? / celebration / wrapped up in the. So next up is the Mayor's report. So again, I'll take it as read. I don't think there's anything else I need to comment on other than to add to the comments that have already been made. It was an interesting kind of process, and to be brutally honest, when I don't know, I'm not 100% sure, but in the last 5 years, I think it's interesting that there is an item about the dam on today's agenda, which I think is appropriate, given I think your first meeting was that massive decision, probably the biggest decision on the back of some of the most contentious and challenging conversations and discussions that the council's ever made, and you came in at a point where all of that had been done, and so in some ways it's appropriate that we finish with an item on the agenda which was not as contentious, but still elicited, there are still challenges and questions. So in the intervening period, Councillor Hill mentioned COVID, the aftermath of COVID and just the tensions in the community and the challenges and some of the divisions that are still apparent. That were there before, but were highlighted and have continued to present challenges to many parts of the community, but particularly councils. I think people underestimate the impact that has personally on people when they are attacking the council or criticising the council, because as much as it's not necessarily intended personally, it's impossible not to take it personally when it's in your inbox with your name on it. And I'd have to say, I know people don't see a lot of this, but the content of a lot of that correspondence, there is no other way than to take that very personally. And I think we all underestimate the ability we have to dismiss that, to fire back. We're politicians. We can tell people to shove off. We can ignore people. Our staff don't have that ability. They are bound to respond, to read, to follow up, to do all that. And again, I don't want to say I don't feel sorry, but I do want to acknowledge that has been a massive part of the last 5 years. Not to dwell on the negatives, because through that, I think you have led the council. People have mentioned culture, and I think that is the single biggest thing. There is no one I would have preferred to go through the last 5 years, and particularly the whole COVID experience, leading our organisation. So, I really appreciate everything you've done for us, and wish you all the best with, firstly, a bit of a break, and then whatever you choose to do with in the future. And as Councillor Murray mentioned, if the opportunity ever comes up to work together again, I'd really appreciate that opportunity. So with that, I'll move that my report be received. And second, Deputy Mayor Bryant. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Right, and Mike has confirmed that the Wallace Street bus stop is covered in the recommendation, that we don't need to revisit. So for those who may have been concerned, rest assured, it's all covered. And I think that draws us to the conclusion of the council meeting. I'd just like to thank everybody for obviously your attendance today, but over the whole course of the year. The development process of the long-term plan, which is now about to go out kind of in the early part of the new year after some final decisions into the public consultation phase. The amount of effort that everyone's put in, council staff, but councillors, the way that whole conversation has played out, the constructive way that the conversations are taking place, and the fact that it's been a huge amount of work, particularly for those perhaps it's the first time going through a long-term plan, and as well as dealing with the details and the specifics, actually having to understand, learn the process. I think we're in a good place in terms of the relationship that we have from governance to management in this organisation, going back to the culture comment earlier. And I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to the public consultation phase on the long-term plan, because given a lot of the things it contains, particularly around the rates and debt, it's likely to be challenging. But I am confident that the process we've been through puts us in a great position to provide answers to people with the questions that they have, and we'll just wait and see where that happens. So enjoy the break, enjoy the few weeks off over the kind of Christmas, New Year period. Things get underway again in late January, and we've got some quite fundamental decisions to make. The first one is actually probably one of the most important decisions we'll collectively make outside the long-term plan, which is how to fill the relatively small but extremely large shoes of our CEO. So enjoy the break, and we'll see everyone formally again in the new year. Yep, I was just about to ask Councillor Hill to close the meeting with karakia.
He karakia tātou kua mutu o mātou mahi mō tēnei wā. Manaki tia mātou o mātou hoa o mātou whānau katoa, ai o ki te aorangi, ai e tau mai ana.